There are a few commands for input and output. So if you've seen, for example, in C++, you have std in and std out. So in MIPS, you basically have series of signals that you put that signal in v0. So you have a number, basically. It's an integer. So if, let's say 1 does something, 2 does something. So every number has a different definition, that like it's a different signal, and you basically put that in v0, and there's a table, like you can see, that of the different signals that there is. And then sometimes if you have a argument, for example, if you want to print, you're gonna put it in a0, so depending on the operation that you are doing. And then if you are reading, your result gonna be saved in v0. So let's look at the example. If we are getting an integer from the standard input or the console, we're gonna see that in C we had basically the cin, or in Java you had this kind of like a scanner, and you could like get next int and so on. So here the signal for reading integer is 5. So you have to first initialize v0 with 5. So you put this 5 in v0, and then when you call system call, the the processor knows to basically to check into this v0. So that's how it's designed. It checks v0 and it see what is the signal that is there. So it sees this number 5, and then based off that, it's gonna do some operation. So here in this case, it's gonna read the input from the console. So it's gonna wait for the user to input some number, and after that happens, it's gonna save that number to v0. So here we are moving that v0 to one of our S registers to keep it. And then you can, if you have another input that you want to take, you can basically repeat this kind of 3 lines and save it, of course, in some other registers. This is for printing integers. So very similar in C++, for example, you have cout, or in Java you have system.out.print. Here the signal is 1 for printing an integer. So you put the 1 in v0 to send the signal, and then you have to, so at this point nothing is happening actually until you do the system call. So this is kind of like the prep work. So you put the 1 in v0, and then you put the number that you want to print. So this s0, you put it in a1, so that those are fixed. And then after that, you have to do the system call. And then once you do that, based on these, the processor gonna print this number that is gonna be 9 onto the console. And then for the strings, we have a different signal, of course, is 4. And you don't need to memorize this. There's a table that you can look up. But in Java and C, we use the same cout and system.out.print. In here, we should use different signals. And the difference is that we're gonna see this later, but the way that we put the string is different. So basically we are declaring that a string in our data section because it's gonna be on the memory, and you use that label that is basically referencing the memory location for this string, and you copy that memory address with the LA command to A0. So you don't need to worry about the details of this right now because we're gonna see a lot more when we get to the arrays.